What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be getting into my Week 15 NFL Power Rankings. So let's dive right into it, guys. Starting with the worst team in the NFL, in my opinion, right now, we're going to have the Houston Texans staying at the worst spot. So the Texans this week put up a big fight against the Dallas Cowboys, nearly pull off a massive upset. They fought in this one. They fought from start to finish, but the lack of talent on defense and on offense, it was just not enough in this game. They got a few things to go their way, and they nearly pulled off what would have been probably the biggest upset of the season at this point. The Texans, took it to their other Texas team. So just couldn't quite get the job done for Houston right there. Let's move on to number 31. We're going to have the Arizona Cardinals dropping down 7 spots. And Kyler Murray tears his ACL. This is the reason for them dropping down all the way down here. Just without Kyler Murray and Colt McCoy, he's a good backup, but I just don't think he's going to be enough. This offense has a little bit of playmakers. They're a better team than the Texans. They got a few playmakers on defense. It's just an uninspiring team, though, in general. And with Murray out, there's no one really to carry this team. And I do think this team's one of the worst teams in the league at number 31. The second worst team right now, in my opinion. Moving on to number 30, we're going to have the Chicago Bears jumping up a spot on bye week just because of the Cardinals dropping down. Moving on to number 29, we're going to have the Denver Broncos jumping up a spot. So the Broncos this week, they look a lot better with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson plays much more like his former self in Seattle. This team is able to score 28 points on the day. After really struggling to start at the game, the Broncos, man, they got playmakers on defense. This defense is talented. We have known that from the beginning. And Russell Wilson, if he could play like that, this team is more like the team than I thought they were, but we can't really bring them up just because of 1 week. Also, Wilson is hurt with a concussion injury, so I don't even think he's going to be back for their next game. But big-time game from the Denver Broncos offense. That's a big step forward, and they're trying to build some momentum into next year into trying to make this thing work with Wilson. Moving on to number 28, we're going to have the Indianapolis Colts dropping down a spot on bye. Nothing else really to add there. 27, we're going to have the Atlanta Falcons also dropping down. They're on bye week. They still have an opportunity to win their division, and they're going to start Desmond Ridder this next week. So excited to see him play, but I still don't really have a lot of faith on the Falcons. And then number 26, we're going to have the Los Angeles Rams jumping up 2 spots into the decent tier. Big time win for the Rams. Baker Mayfield continued, just a 2 weeks, into the team. He comes out, he looks great against the Raiders. Now, could that just be the Raiders' poor defensive play? It could be. But yeah, man, two games in 2 days for him to go out there after being cut by the Panthers and on Thursday Night Football, get a big win. That is pretty darn impressive. They had to come back down 16-3. This defense has a lot of talent with Bobby Wagner back there and Jalen Ramsey. It's a solid enough defense. And if Baker Mayfield could play like that, and with a great Sean McVay head coach, this team can pull off upsets like that. And that was a big-time win for the Rams. Moving on to number 25, we're going to have the New Orleans Saints staying at the same spot off bye week. Obviously coming off that frustrating blown lead that they had against the Buccaneers. Just not going to be fun to sit on with a bye week for them, but we'll see how they respond next week. They still have a chance to win their division, although it's very slim. Moving on to number 24, we're going to have the Pittsburgh Steelers dropping down 2 spots here. So Kenny Pickett gets hurt in this game. I think that's the main reason why this team lost. just Mitch Trubisky is not a good quarterback in the league right now. He's just not going to cut it and get the job done for this team. The defense is pretty good. With TJ Watt coming back, this defense is really taking a step up. It's just not enough, though, when Trubisky throws 3 interceptions in the red zone. So, rough week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They probably should have beat the Ravens there. Moving on to number 23, the Carolina Panthers jumping up 6 spots and into the in the hunt tier, out of the bad tier. The Panthers, a big-time win over Seattle this week. Their run attack really just shredded apart the Seahawks defense. They really are able to run the football effectively. If they get the right matchup, they can run the football pretty well. And then, Sam Darnold has looked pretty solid, over these past two games for them. Big time win this week, and they're only a game back on the Buccaneers. This defense has a lot of playmakers with Burns, with J.C. Horn. This Panthers team is a little bit scary right now, especially for the Buccaneers. They're not a great team in general, but they can make the playoffs. And if things are on for the Panthers, if they're able to run the ball effectively, get a right matchup, I could see them pulling off a big upset in the playoffs. But I don't think they're going to make it quite yet. I still don't think they're better than the Buccaneers. Moving on to number 22, we're going to have the Green Bay Packers dropping down a spot on bye week this week. Nothing else to add there. And then number 21, we have the Cleveland Browns dropping down a spot. Deshaun Watson's return has been very bad. Watson did not look good at all against the Cincinnati Bengals. I do not know what he was doing in that game. He was missing reads. He was not playing good. Basically playing like a quarterback that hasn't played in 2 years, and that's what Watson is. Can't say I'm too mad about that. Deshaun Watson probably is getting what he's deserving right now. He's just not playing great. And the Browns defense has figured some things out a little bit more. Played a little bit better against the Bengals, a team that usually this team really plays well against in the Browns. But yeah, the Cleveland Browns just a frustrating week. And they've got to figure some things out with Deshaun Watson because they traded a lot for him and they want they want stuff back on their investment. Moving on to number 20, we're going to have the New York Giants dropping down a spot and into the decent tier. Okay, New York, I just don't think they're going to be good enough to make the playoffs this season. Now, could they be in the hunt? Yes, they could. At 7-5-1, they're in the playoff picture right now. But out of the past 7 weeks, this team hasn't beaten a real playoff, like a real team, in 7 weeks. I mean, the Giants, they're just not very good. They've had an excellent season. Brian Daboll's done a great job at the run attack with Saquon Barkley starting to not show up a little bit more. And Daniel Jones is still Daniel Jones. The defense is suffering injuries right now. I just don't think that this Giants team is going to have enough to string together like 2 wins to be a 9-7-1 playoff team. I just think this Giants, with this schedule remaining, I don't see them making the playoffs, and I definitely don't think they're worthy of making the playoffs like they're a playoff caliber team. So I'm sorry, Giants fans. You may have a 7-5-1 record, but you just got crushed by the Eagles. I don't really have faith in the Giants. I'm going to be completely honest. Moving on to number 19, we're going to have the Las Vegas Raiders dropping down 4 spots. At 5-8, just a heartbreaking loss for the Raiders. They could have won that game. They could have been a game back on the playoff picture after me really hopping on the Raiders train and putting them into the in the hunt tier last week. But they cannot finish it. The defense clearly still just not a very good defense other than Crosby on the edge. But they played much better football as of late, even in this loss. Their offense with Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, they got enough playmakers to be a very competitive football team. I don't think anyone's going to be wanting to play the Las Vegas Raiders. They can be a lot of teams, but yeah, I mean the Raiders just a very disappointing loss for them. And I just don't think that's going to be enough for them to even have a shot at making the playoffs at this point. All right, number 18, we're going to have the Jacksonville Jaguars jumping up 5 spots. The Jaguars are sitting at 5-8, and they, very interesting, they just demolished the Tennessee Titans in this one. Really took it to them. Trevor Lawrence played excellent. Lawrence is looking a lot better right now than he kind of was on that midseason stretch where they were losing a lot of games in a row. The Jaguars defense still has some concerns, but the way this offense has been playing, I know they got beat down by the Lions in their last game, but that was, just a lot of unlucky stuff, and I do think that they're back here. We saw a couple weeks ago their offense looked great, so the Jaguars, they this isn't done for them. They are only 2 games back of the Titans. They play the Titans again later this season. I could definitely see that. There's a chance that the Jaguars are able to win the division. I'm still going to keep them in the decent tier. I just don't think they're going to have enough to make it. But it's been a very impressive run for the Jaguars, after being 3-7. They're just a very inconsistent team this season. They're starting to get on the high end of that, though. All right, so that is the decent tier. Let's go to number 17. Dropping down 5 spots this week, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Still going to be in the playoffs here. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just a weird team. This offense is just so inconsistent. Tom Brady played horrible. And it's just not with connections with these receivers against that 49ers defense. He was just not playing good at all. And the Buccaneers, their defense is just, I thought they were getting some things going. They look bad against the Niners. I don't think you need to overreact too much for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but that was a horrible showing by Tom Brady's team right there. I mean, they haven't played great over the past few weeks. Against the Saints, they barely survive against New Orleans. Where they have to pull off a 13-point comeback with 3 minutes left. They were the worst team basically all of that game. And then they, a couple of weeks ago, lose to the Cleveland Browns. So with Jacoby Brissett. So it's just not a very good Buccaneers team right now. They've got to figure some things out because this team, Tom Brady, he's obviously Tom Brady. You cannot count him out. But the Buccaneers are not playing good football right now. Moving on to number 16, the Washington Commanders find themselves at 16, jumping up a spot, but are going to drop down to the in the hunt too because I'm more impressed by another team. But at 7-5-1, we're going to see if the Commanders can keep it rolling. It looks like Young will be back in the lineup next week for them, which they're going to need him back. They got a big game this week against New York. Moving on to number 15, we're going to have the Baltimore Ravens sitting at 9-4. The Ravens are going to drop down a spot. I mean, they handled their business against the Steelers. The defense has clearly just taken a turn ever since the beginning of the year. It's a much better defense, especially adding Roquan Smith. That has really helped this defense out. Tyler Huntley, he played decent enough for them to slide away with a win. You might be wondering how this team is in the hunt at 9-4 right now. Once they get back Lamar Jackson, this team is much better. But, if Tyler Huntley was playing this whole season, I do think this team is an in the hunt team. And I'm going to judge them accordingly to that. So the Baltimore Ravens, good win this week, but they're going to find themselves at number 15. Number 14, we're going to have the New York Jets dropping down 3 spots. At 7-6, I mean, the defense continues to show that they're very good. Holding Josh Allen and the Bills to 20 points is good enough. Unfortunately, though, Mike White, and it's just not it. He gets injured in this game. I just don't think, he's just going to be that future for the Jets. This offense is just, not very good. A very similar team to the Washington Commanders, have a really good defense, but just kind of a questionable quarterback situation, kind of a questionable team, really, on the offensive side of the football all around. But New York, they're a good coach team with Robert Saleh. They're still definitely in that mix for the playoff picture. Moving on to number 13, we're going to have the New England Patriots. Going to be jumping up 3 spots this week, I believe. Yeah. At 7-6, solid week. The defense is pretty darn good for the Patriots. It's a very good defense. They don't really have that explosive player, but Bill Belichick coaches this defense very, very well, and they are just a very, very, really, very, really good defense here. The offense is just so inconsistent with Mac Jones. You don't really know what you're going to get from this offense, and that's kind of unfortunate because it's just not a very talented team from top to bottom. But Bill Belichick is such a good head coach, and he's going to lead his team to victories like this. And at 7-6, at 500 right now, Patriots could slide into the playoffs. Moving on to number 12, we're going to have the Tennessee Titans dropping down 3 spots. Very, very bad week for the Titans. Very bad couple weeks, losing to the Eagles by that much last week. And then their defense really struggles against Trevor Lawrence. That was a really concern. The Titans defense was looking very good this season, but against the Jaguars, they just did not play good. It's a good coach team, and I do think they're with Mike Vrabel. I do think this team is going to turn things around on defense. And Ryan Tannehill, just clearly still Ryan Tannehill for this team. He's just not enough to carry his team. And the Titans, they've got to be better all around because, the Jaguars are only 2 games back on them. They could lose this division, which would be very surprising the way it was looking a few weeks ago. So, frustrating week for Tennessee. Moving on to number 11, another frustrating week for this team. The Seattle Seahawks dropping down 3 spots, losing to the Carolina Panthers this week. Just a frustrating loss for the Seahawks. They just could not get it done this week. They got it down to a 17-0 deficit, and it was just too much to overcome for Geno Smith. Geno Smith made a couple bad mistakes in this game. He still played good. I'm not trying to dog on Geno Smith. He's still a very good quarterback. It's just this run defense is just putting too much pressure on Geno to carry his team because the run defense is just horrible right now for the Seahawks. They could not stop Foreman and the Panthers all day long. It's got to be better for the Seahawks run defense. And then Kenneth Walker clearly missing his presence, I think, for the Seahawks. The run game wasn't working for them. So the Seahawks, they're just getting battled out in the trenches right now, and that is not what Pete Carroll wants from his team. I do have faith that Pete Carroll's going to be able to make this a little bit more salvageable like he did early on in this year, and it started to pop up again. I do still really do like the Seahawks. I really do like Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, all excellent players, but they've got to be better, and they've not played great over the past 4 games. So let's move on to number 10. We're going to have Detroit jumping up 8 spots. The Lions have officially found themselves in the top 10 and in the playoff tier. Now, this team could miss out on the playoffs right now. That is for sure. But I do think that even if this team wouldn't make the playoffs, this team is a top 7 team in the NFC, in my opinion, for dang sure. This team's played great over the past 5 games. The offense really stepping it up right now. Jared Goff doing his thing. He's playing pretty darn solid for the Lions. The defense been much better. They play Minnesota today, and they take it to Minnesota. They beat the Vikings pretty darn well in that game to keep their playoff hopes alive. And right now, I do think that this is a playoff caliber team with Detroit, and we're going to see if they can keep it rolling. So a big jump from the Detroit Lions right there at number 10. Number 9, we're going to have the LA Chargers jumping up 4 spots. A big time win for this Chargers team over the Miami Dolphins. Justin Herbert, he just not gonna, he played excellent. I'm not gonna put it all on Justin Herbert for this win, but he played very good, like a top quarterback in the NFL against Miami. He was hitting tight throws. He was making great plays, and the Chargers had an excellent game right there from Herbert. And then the defense, Brandon Staley, changed up his scheme this week to a much more aggressive approach, and it worked. The Dolphins just clearly were not ready for it. So a big time, switch up there for the Chargers makes this team that much better. They have dealt with injuries all season long, but the Chargers, big time week. This team's starting to look a little bit more like what we anticipated coming into the year. Number 8, though, we're going to have the Minnesota Vikings dropping down a spot. Minnesota at 10-3 right now. Just a bad week. They're going to be dropping out of the contender tier here. Just to the Lions got really manhandled in this one. Just the Lions it felt like they were the better team from start to finish there. Kirk Cousins makes a few, just plays like Kirk Cousins in this one. The offense I'm not concerned about, though. Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, it's still a great unit down there. The defense, though, clearly I just don't think it's going to be enough for them to lead this team to a Super Bowl. The defense is just not very good at all. They just don't have enough talent on that side of the football, and it shows right now, giving up 32 points to the Lions, and it's just sometimes too much to overcome for this Vikings offense. So that's really why I have the Vikings out of the contender tier right there. I just don't really have a lot of faith in Minnesota, if I'm going to be fully honest. Moving on to number 7, we're going to have the Miami Dolphins. A frustrating week for Miami here. They drop one to the Chargers 2 in a row now, and Tua, he has not looked good over the past 2 games here. I still trust Tua, but yeah, he's got to be better. He cannot play like he has. He, threw just, didn't make the throws that we were accustomed to. He was inaccurate against the Chargers. The Chargers clearly came out with a game plan that slowed down Tua, and McDaniels was not ready for it. And the defense still has its concerns right now. The Miami Dolphins have got to be better. That cannot be what they, want if they want to make the playoffs now. I mean, yeah, they're going to be dropping out of the contender tier as well with the Minnesota Vikings here. They've got to be better than what they showed. Let's move on to number 6, the San Francisco 49ers jumping up 4 spots. Okay, so a lot of people might be saying, well, the 49ers, they should be a contender right now. I'm going to have to disagree with that just for a little bit. Now, this team, if Brock Purdy looks like that, this team is a contender. I just need to see one more week, at least one more, week of Purdy, playing like that, because it could just be a fluke. He has looked good over the past 2 weeks. But clearly this is just the system for a third-string quarterback like Purdy, has some talent, not very great arm talent, but, just be a game manager type, run the football very effectively, and the Buccaneers just dominated. I mean, the San Francisco 49ers just dominated the Buccaneers in that one. This defense is one of the best in the league, arguably the best. So, yeah, I mean, this 49ers team's legit right now. They play Seattle on Thursday Night Football. They have a chance to wrap up the division with a win there. And we're going to see, man, if this team is actually legitimate contenders this week. All right, let's go to the contender tier now. Starting at number 5, the Dallas Cowboys dropping down a spot. They nearly dropped one to the Houston Texans. We can just clearly see that the Cowboys just underestimated the Texans. That just happens. It feels like every year for Dallas. This team just seems to take teams lightly sometimes, and they definitely did that to the Texans. Texas brought their A game there, But Dak Prescott was able to lead a game-winning drive against the Texans, and a win is a win regardless for the Cowboys. So, yeah, I'm not going to take a barely win over the Texans too seriously. But yeah, the Cowboys have got to be better than that. If they play like that, they're going to lose to, a lot of other teams. Texans, not a very good team. Moving on to number 4, we're going to have the Kansas City Chiefs dropping down 2 spots here at 10-3. Just the defensive problems for the Chiefs is clearly apparent right now. It's just, they lack explosiveness on the edge on the pass rush. They don't have the best secondary in the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs just really not a. It's just, it's still the concern with the Chiefs like it has been over the past few years. And Patrick Mahomes, he's an excellent quarterback, but, he can get a little bit aggressive, and he has made a few mistakes in these past few games that have cost his team, leading the Denver Broncos back into that one. So I still really do think the Chiefs are a top-tier team, but I do think that they deserve to come down after not a great week against the Broncos where they just barely survived. Let's move on to number 3. We're going to have the Cincinnati Bengals jumping up 2 spots. The Bengals, get the job done over the Cleveland Browns. They've had trouble with the Browns, but they finally were able to beat them. I think that was their first win in like 6 games against the Browns. So they got the job done there. Joe Burrow continues to play at an excellent level right now. This defense for the Bengals clearly, is underestimated, underrated. They are losing some pieces on the defense, which hurts for the Bengals. But, this team is very, very good and should not be taken lightly for Cincinnati, the defending AFC champions. So a good week against the Browns. Moving on to number 2. Dropping down a spot, we're going to have the Buffalo Bills here, dropping out of the number 1 spot just because of the Eagles I'm more impressed with. But the Bills, just a good win this week against the Jets. Josh Allen continues to just play at a high level. He does make those mistakes from time to time again, but he plays great in this one against a good New York Jets defense. And the Buffalo Bills should not be taken lightly right now. The defense, Von Miller's out for the season, which hurts for the Bills, but I do think this defense is still very good, especially on the secondary. They have some trouble on the run defense, but I'm not worried about the Bills. I do still think that they're the best team in the AFC, but number 1 right now, it's time for me to stop sleeping on the Philadelphia Eagles, jumping up 2 spots and into the number 1 team in the contender tier. I mean, this team I think, can beat you in basically every single way. Jalen Hurts, excellent quarterback. He has been playing amazing this season. You just can't say it any less. Hurts is an excellent quarterback. Right now, the AJ Brown, great receiver. They can run the football effectively here in Philadelphia. This defense, their run defense, has played much better over the past few weeks. That was kind of my knock on them, a couple weeks ago when they lost to the Commanders. They've played much better lately. The pass rush for the Eagles is great. Their secondary is great. This team is just so well balanced all around, and it's led to a 12-1 record right now, and in my opinion, the best team in the NFL. So anyway, guys, thank you all for watching this video today. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the content. Comment down below your power rankings, and anyway,